Thank you very much, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to talk to you this morning about how we see the role of Sharia finance. As the introduction made clear, that shadow is one of those very peculiar English terms, and normally it means that when you're on a platform with a government minister, that you argue very furiously and you disagree with them on every point that they make. I have to say that this is one of those occasions where that isn't the case, and the development of Sharia finance is an area actually where the opposition has supported the changes that the government have made, and I've taken part in the debates in this year's finance bill, and certainly I know from the conversation I've had with the then Economic Secretary and the debates we've had in previous years in the finance bill, actually there's been a common agreement about the changes that need to be made to encourage Islamic finance in the UK. It's a very appropriate venue to have a seminar like this. As I was walking down from the tube station, I saw behind the mosque the Gherkin, which is one of the buildings in the city of London, very distinctive building, and you know, it's appropriate to have a seminar like this on the borders of the city. London is, I think, one of the most innovative financial centres in the world. It's consistently searching for new products and markets, not always very wisely and carefully, as the turmoil over the course of the last year indicates. But actually, in looking for new opportunities, London has sought to embrace Islamic finance, not just through independent institutions, but also a number of financial institutions in London, such as Barclays, BNP, Paribas, Lloyds, Deutsche Bank, all have Islamic windows in their operations, and they clearly recognise the importance of trying to serve a growing market. And the products London offers are wide. There are equity funds investing in Sharia-compliant products. Trading takes place in the London Metals Exchange to support Sharia-compliant finance. There's commercial sukuk as well as the sovereign issue that Stephen referred to, mortgages, and of course, as we see on the right-hand side, insurance as well. So we are seeing a much wider range of products that are available. I think this reflects the skills that we have in London, as well as the desire to enter new markets and to understand the changing demands of people across the world in terms of what they're looking for, how they want to invest the money that they have. And of course, it's not just about the wholesale market, it's not just about the opportunity to see London as a whole, but also trying to provide products which meet the needs of the British Muslim communities across this country. And we need, I think, to make sure that we have the right tax and regulatory framework to enable Sharia-compliant products to flourish. And that's why we supported the principle that the government has adopted in tackling these issues, the sense that there should be no obstacles, to Islamic financial institutions being established, and nor should there be any special favours. There should be a level playing field both for tax and regulation. I think that's an important principle that London should also adhere to in looking at the development of the financial markets. So equal risks should receive equal regulatory attention and equal capital requirements. And I know from the discussions I had with the Financial Services Authority in the UK that they've worked to ensure that, and they've worked very closely in trying to develop the right regulatory regime for Sharia-compliant institutions, and ensuring that in authorising those institutions, the same rules are applied to them as apply to any other financial institution that sets up in the UK. And that's required a certain amount of legislative action to reduce some of the unnecessary regulatory barriers, and that's to be welcomed. And I know, as I mentioned earlier, through finance bills, we've sought to ensure equal treatment in the taxation of comparable products, treating, for example, the return on sukuk as if it was interest, so that the same tax regime applies, and so there isn't a distinction between ordinary commercial finances and Islamic compliant products. We mentioned earlier on the work of Eddie George and the interest that he took in establishing in how to develop Islamic financial markets in the UK, and he was very instrumental in removing the double stamp duty for Islamic mortgages. So it's a sign of the maturity of the market when one of the measures in this year's finance bill was to tackle the abuse of that measure. And it just shows that the changes that have been made in tax have actually caught the attention not just of those working in this field, but in a wider field as well. And it's right to make sure that people don't abuse the reliefs that are there. But I think that, that those measures are absolutely right, and that's the right sort of support, I think, to help develop the market. And it's important to ensure this level playing field both for the financial markets just down the road, but also, I think, to ensure that we tackle the issue of financial exclusion amongst Muslim communities. I know that many people felt uncomfortable about mortgages because they felt that the mortgages that were on offer were in breach of Sharia law. And when I've been talking to people operating in the sector, I've had the opportunity to visit the Islamic Bank of Britain in Birmingham, their headquarters there, about 18 months ago, about the importance of using developments in Sharia-compliant products to tackle financial exclusion in communities. I think that's a very important part of the work that we can do. But I do think there are further barriers that need to be addressed. There are certain, I think there are other challenges that we need to tackle. One of the areas that's had a great deal of focus in the context of the international financial crisis that we've seen is the transparency and disclosure of complex financial instruments in sets of accounts. And I would be interested in that, having trained as a chartered accountant. And certainly there are global inconsistencies in the way in which Sharia-compliant products are accounted for. Now, Britain, along with Malaysia and Bahrain, are very much leading the way on developing consistent accounting standards for Sharia-compliant products. But we do know that where there is poor disclosure, where there is a lack of transparency, that causes inefficiency, it causes the ability of people to compare different sets of accounts, and acts as a barrier on growth and development. So I think the development of more consistent financial standards that can be applied across the world, I think, is a welcome move. Stephen touched on the shortage of skills that there are in the community, and we welcome the work that the Islamic Foundation is doing in this area, but city institutions themselves are also adapting to the new environment that there is. So, for example, the CAS Business School has launched an MBA specialising in Islamic finance, and that, again, I think shows the commitment that there is to education across the whole spectrum. The Chartered Institute of Management Accountants has a bespoke qualification in Islamic finance as well. And I think we do need to encourage more people to take up these qualifications, because I think that will not just strengthen institutions in the UK, but I think also will provide a great platform for growth in the future. And I think one of the areas I know that does cause businesses trying to establish Sharia-compliant products some problems is the interpretation of Sharia law in connection with particular products. And I know that the important role that scholars play in validating those products, and it's an important part of being able to launch Sharia-compliant products. But I think one of the challenges of trying to grow the market and trying to increase the range of products that are out there, trying to increase the number of businesses in this area, is in the constraints of Sharia law, how do you try to set some common standards and templates that people know can follow? And I sort of one business that spent a huge amount of money in trying to develop a product, only to find it lacks, at the end of the day, the agreement from the scholars, and then set that business back some time. And if we want to see this market develop, we need to think about how better guidance can be provided to people operating in this area. But one of the things I think that we always need to recognise, and Stephen highlighted in terms of the moves that the government wants to make and the publication going to launch later this year, is actually we can't afford to be complacent about London's standing. There are suggestions that the French want to grow their share of this market, and so we can't stand still. We look to you to come to us with ideas about where improvements can be made, what changes ought to be made to ensure that London does remain the leading financial centre for Islamic finance. And I think that's in the interest of both the wider economy, but also I think the communities that make up this country. And I think this conference today is a sign of the willingness to participate in this debate. And I think that politicians of all parties are very keen to listen, to understand your concerns, to understand what more needs to be done. Because I think that dialogue, I think, will strengthen the opportunities there will be for Islamic finance in the future. Thanks very much.